back to your Harvard Business article, which was about like kick-ass customer service. And so my question for you, like you came up with, I think, one core kind of principle, which was like, customers want results, not sympathy. How has that core insight held up in today's digital and AI-enabled world?
Well, every organization that hires people for frontline service says we want to find people who are empathetic. It makes sense to hire people who have that sense of empathy. But what we learned and what the HBR piece allowed us to express is there's now a new empathy in the world. Here's the difference. The old empathy was, oh, Cindy, you have some kind of a problem. I feel really bad for you. Oh, that must be terrible. Well, let me see what we could do to try to help you. The new empathy is being in charge of or owning your problem. Okay, I see what your problem is. I've helped a million people with that same problem. Let's work together and solve that problem. So rather than just feeling bad for you or patting you on the head and saying, there, you're a good person and you don't deserve to have this terrible situation that you're experiencing. The new empathy is, got it, I'm in charge, let's solve your problem. So ownership of the problem, or what we call being a controller personality, grabbing the customer by the wrist and leading them to a solution, that is what creates an effortless experience in today's world.
I have a good example for that, actually. So I've had to help my mom, who she has a lot of properties, and one of them has, 4 different meters for electricity. I called because I had to pay the bills. And because I'm paying the bill on a credit card, they're charging me like $11 per bill just to pay it, which is like an extraordinarily outrageous fee. And so anyway, I'm talking to this one customer service person, and she's very sweet. And she keeps apologizing. She's like, this is painful for me to do. And like, I totally recognize that she was really trying to be kind, but it was actually annoying.
Yes.
And I was like thinking to myself, oh my God, your boss must hate you, because she's highlighting the fact that this is a terrible thing to do to your customers. $11 for, a $100 bill or even a $500 bill. And so she's highlighting that and siding with the customer. And I know she's doing it probably because she's been reamed out a million times. So anyway, I had that experience one time calling in, and then another time I called in and I think I got a supervisor just accidentally. And I've explained to her, like, look, I've already paid 2 online. I just can't do these 2. And she's like, that's stupid. And then I hear her like, tick, 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 like click, 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 click. And then she's like, everything should be on your portal now. Check.
Problem solved.
Boom. I see the problem.
Done.
I can fix it. And I was like, I love you.
You hit upon something that was real counterintuitive that came out of the research. And that is, if you're having an interaction with somebody in customer service and they're really nice and they're friendly and they're empathetic and you really like them, but they're not helping to solve your problem, there's this cognitive dissonance that occurs. It's like,
yeah,
this person is really nice. I didn't call to have a pleasant conversation with a nice person. I called because I've got a problem that needs to be resolved. And the fact that you're really nice and that I really like you and you're still not solving the problem, I don't know how to think.
Mm-hmm.
But a person who's just more direct and more bold and more in charge, who solves your problem, that's all you could ever hope for. And it's, in many cases, more than you could have ever hoped for.
That's how it was with that particular case. For managers who want to build like a kick-ass I'm just going to use your term, a kick-ass self-service organization. What are the timeless principles that still apply regardless of technology changes?
It really starts with what exactly is it we're trying to accomplish here as an organization? So again, my experience has been largely with companies that are operating contact centers. So that's both phone and digital interactions. Now we're going to talk about AI before long here, but the operation really needs to be centered on a single goal. And what we've learned is that the most important and the most effective single goal is creating an experience for every customer where after it's over, they say, that was way less of a hassle than I thought it was going to be. That was easier than I thought it was going to be. Because again, remember, they're coming to you with some kind of a problem or they need information or they have an issue. When it's all over, when they say, that was way less of a hassle than I thought it was going to be. And oh, by the way, every time we contact customer service, we assume it's going to be some form of a hassle. If it's way less effort than that customer thought, their future loyalty is virtually guaranteed. However, if they leave the experience feeling like, oof, that was rough, or this person I talked to didn't know what they were doing, or I had to repeat myself multiple times, or I had to stop everything that I was doing online and start all over again on the phone and dial 10 digits and wait on hold. Oh, that's a loyalty eroding experience. And so measuring customer effort, as it turns out, is not only the right thing to assess how well your operation is doing, but it's also the right input to give your frontline people. Because if you're oriented more toward what's traditionally called CSAT, were you satisfied with this interaction, customer satisfaction?
Oh,
That's
boy,
a great
that
outcome. But what am I supposed to do in the middle of this interaction that would have you feeling satisfied at the end?
I think about that a lot because we get asked, because you call customer service too.
Yep.
Every
Don't I?
customer interaction, you get asked about taking a survey. And I know it's a satisfaction survey. And you're so right. Like, I'm satisfied if you solve my problem quickly. And quickly means that, like, I didn't have a lot of pain, right?
Right.
And so that's what satisfaction means in that context. But I think it gets muddled so much of the time, that word, because we think of it, we link it too often with like happiness. Like, I don't need to actually be happy or validated as a human being. I need my problem to come off my list.
Right. You need to go back to the moment just before that problem was even part of your consciousness. You need to go back to normal. You're in a negative state. There's a problem. There's an issue. You need something. You need to go back to where you were before. You don't need to be elevated to some delightful moment where you're singing the praises of this company. There's nothing wrong with that. But especially when there's a problem or an issue, asking people if they were satisfied, what we learned is the answer to that question isn't typically a very good predictor of that customer's future loyalty behavior.
Yeah, I think it's probably because it gets muddled. It's the same thing with employees, right? Like, we do a lot in different ways. We call it employee satisfaction, but you measure it in a lot of different ways, because if you are just asking about satisfaction, most people automatically make the leap into happy, and happy is not necessarily satisfied, and satisfied is not necessarily happy. They're two different concepts.
You want to see happy? I just hit the Powerball and I'm out of here. Now I'm happy. So
exactly. Or I'm happy and I'm happy with my coworkers, but this job is tedious and I feel like I'm dying on the inside,
right.
So
to your earlier question, building a culture and building an operation around reducing customer effort is the smartest thing a company can possibly do, because it's not only the right outcome, it's the one that leads to continued customer loyalty at the highest level, but it's also the right input for your frontline people. It's an active thing that you can be doing. Every word out of your mouth can be oriented toward reassuring the customer that this is going to be way easier than you thought it was going to be. It's not going to be a big hassle. You and me are on the same team. We're working together. The enemy is the problem. I'm not the enemy. And we're going to work together and make sure that the problem goes away so that you can forget it ever happened, or that the information you need is immediately available so you can go do whatever you need to do. So reducing customer effort is not only the right thing to be measuring, but it's the right thing to be sharing with your team and to be using as the standard for whether or not we're doing a good job in customer service.